Hey, good morning. Welcome to the new set designed by me. I wonder where this set's located. You guys, it's literally just my room. But um today's a fun day. I'm finally starting my senior project and a book I really 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 wanted to read. It's a book called I couldn't even commit to the bit. Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell by Susanna Clarke. And you might be kind of asking, Tyler, why do you really want to focus on this book, this like chonker, this literal doorstop? Let me see it. Wait, I want to see how loud it is if I drop it on my desk. Yep. It's okay. My roommates aren't here, but it is 8 in the morning, so I will try to be nice. I will try to be nice to my neighbors. But you might be asking why focus on this. And to start that discussion, I feel like I need to get to her second novel, but it's the first book I read by her, and that would be Piranesi. So with Piranesi, um, I read it in, I think, 2022, maybe 2023. Storygraph will have an answer for that picture here. When I read this in 2022 or 2023, again, I don't remember, I just couldn't help but feel the world being so magical and being so invested in her characters in such a distinct way from regular fantasy. Regular fantasy, sometimes it'll feel like in a distinct world, but I don't feel the pure magic, the pure feeling of magic in this world. And Piranesi does a really good job at that. It's one of my favorite books for a reason. I really liked it. I really liked the feeling of this house, these infinite rooms, unlike this one, which is like tiny a little bit. Unlike this one, which is kind of tiny, especially for the rent. I digress. But this room's kind of tiny, but not like this house. And Piranesi's just an explorer. He's writing basically all these diary entries about these infinite hallways lined with statues against the walls with with an infinite number of rooms that are infinitely sized, meaning they're like huge. Sometimes they hold seas. People have died exploring them. You really get to learn from his perspective, and it's just him and this other person living in this house. And I had such a fun time with this book, reading his entries, understanding his perspective, and loving him so much as a character that after finishing this like a few years ago, I want to tackle this behemoth. So, this, I'm even struggling to hold it. This is just under 800 pages in the hardback version. I believe it's over 800 in the paperback, which I don't know. I tend to prefer hardback because it looks better on a shelf, but you know, I'm pretentious. I can acknowledge that. But yeah, it's a little bit long, a little bit. But one of the appeals of reading Susanna Clarke's Jonathan Strange, I personally wanted to read this mammoth behemoth doorstop, if you will, as we've kind of established, because partially because of this book. I'm not going to lie. Piranesi is one of my favorites for a reason. But I also feel like books like this, where they're over 700 pages long, paperback 800 pages long, is that it's often not covered in academia, which I think is something that is sorely missed in a way. I see a lot of short books like Piranesi, like 100-page reads, 200-page reads, even 300-page reads being read all the time in academia, especially for my classes as an English major. But I think we need to acknowledge the literary, I don't know, feelings of something like this that's super long and you just get to dwell in it. So that's like one reason. Another reason is I actually prefer longer books. I don't read them as often because they're such a challenge, but I really like a challenge when I'm reading. it gives me something to look forward to. It gives me something to dwell more on. And it's also part of the reason I really like fantasy, because you can think about a series and how it's going to develop over 3 books. In this case, it's just going to be the one. But you get to really think about these things. You can kind of interact with forums more. You can just do a lot with longer books. And I really want to explore the part of that. And that's just what is interesting to me. To give perspective on some of the longest books I've read 2 of the Brandon Sanderson Stormlight Archive books. Those are over 1,000 pages. I didn't finish the 3rd one because I was bored a little bit. But I've read that. I've read all of Robin Hobb's series, which I dearly loved. All 16 books, I think. And then there's also the novella. And I read the short stories. So those books are all really long. And the last one is just under 1,000 pages. So I just tend to really like something to dwell on, to grow on. And I think that's what this journey is going to provide. More details on that later. So those are the first 2 reasons. Now the 3rd is a little bit more complex. And well, it's really not, but Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. I don't know, I keep getting the need to flash it. I don't know. It's just kind of cool. In itself is kind of a pastiche. And a pastiche is very similar to a parody, where it invokes a lot of tropes of different genres and tries to subvert them or build on them. And again, this is what I've heard. I've only read like the first page, and even then. I would consider Jonathan Strange a very postmodern novel, as the way it takes pastiche from these 19th century Gothic novels, again, from what I've heard. And that is an area that I really haven't explored in my degree. I did prep for this by reading some Jane Austen. I got 80 pages into Northanger Abbey and then I DNF'd it. I'm so sorry to Austen heads, but you're better than Dallas heads. Texas reference. Anyway, and I read up on some stuff about Lord Byron, and I have heard he's in this book. So I really don't have much to compare this to. And I think that's going to be an interesting journey to really view this with, an open mind, a new perspective. And it's not going to be too scary since I've read this before and I really connected with it. I really connected with this. So I feel like I understand her writing, at least to some extent. And I will give myself credit there. So reasons 1, 2, and 3, read 1 book by her, already loved it. I believe 2, I'm not really filming this with a script. I believe 2 is I just prefer longer books. And 3, it's a pastiche. And the 4th reason, I'm going to say it's the 4th reason for now, is I think this book is going to provide a really interesting journey. Considering the long nature of it, like I was discussing before. And also, like, there's so many pictures in this, you guys. I'm going to cover this a little bit more later, but I got this version, which is I believe a 1st edition, 4th printing of this novel, but it has all of these drawings and everything in them. Let me just see if I can find one in here. I know there's one on the first page. I'll cheat with that. But like, there's a bunch of these pencil sketched drawings in here that I think are really interesting. And I just think the composition of the book is really cool. Like, where's the... Like, you can see at the bottom, there's like you can't see it that well, but like right here where my pinky is, you can see like a footnote, and like a lot of books nowadays don't have them. And I'm just like kind of excited to see that and to really let that grow and just kind of show some footage of that. Like, objectively, as a book, I think this is kind of cool. Like, I think the formatting of everything is pretty cool. So yeah, that's the 4th reason. And then lastly, I promise this is our last one. I promise. Lastly, our other reason for covering this is because of the research opportunities. So with this project, I plan on having some more close reading analysis. And with that, I feel like I'd want a lot of research to back up my opinions. And this book, from the Wikipedia page alone, is a lot. Supposedly, like, this took her 10 years to write. And she didn't have any writing experience before this, from what I've heard. She got a huge advance. She got a Neil Gaiman cover blurb, which I think is on the back of this. Oh, it is. It's at the bottom. You can see it. Which was a huge deal at the time. Not as much now. We don't like Neil Gaiman anymore. We don't. You know what you did. But it got a huge industry push, and you can still see this book in places like Barnes & Noble all the time in the fiction section. Like, she's still, I don't know the sales figures, but like, she's still regularly selling books of this. And to even like get this much of a push, to even have this in hardback for a fantasy book alone shows the amount of potential for different articles and different analysis being pushed by scholarly sources and everything. And I really want to do my best at pushing this into this art form of video and just trying to do that in my own way, just trying to contribute to the conversation. So I think I've covered everything about why I wanted to read this book. Now I get to cover what this kind of video is going to be structured like. Probably should have done that at the beginning, but whatever, major loser, to quote a wise Disney Channel movie. So the way the structure of this video is going to go is that this book is chunked into thirds. Like, it's made up of 3 volumes, and I want to check in after reading each volume and hopefully give like a closer reading analysis, maybe discuss my predictions later in the book, any thoughts, any opinions of what might happen, what I consider to be happening here, what my analysis might be. Or I also might like check in after I've read something really interesting and I want to talk about it. It really depends. So yeah, I just kind of want to format it that way. Just show you some really cool features of the book, potentially some fan art if copyright allows, and really just go from there. I really want you all to have a fun time watching me read this book. And also, I just really want to make this fun for myself in an academic way that is rewarding to the discourse, but also is just having a lot of fun in a way that a lot of the people I've watched in video essay form have done for so long. And I've really watched I'm rambling a little bit, but I've really watched video essays as an art form for a very long time. I would say I've been on YouTube actively since like 2015, and I've been watching video essays probably since 2020. Yeah. So I've seen the art form really develop, and it's just something that I kind of want to be a part of. And I feel like this would be a really good journey in my own way because I really want to cover it, and I've had this book on my wish list for a very, very, very long time. With that, and then we will reconnect. So we are officially done with volume 1. I have the bookmark to prove it. And we're just going to talk about it for a little bit. So yeah. So just for a quick summary, Gilbert, gross, whatever. Gilbert Norrell starts in Yorkshire. He's all like, oh my gosh, my library, like, I'm so bae. And he's living in Yorkshire. He's super nervous. And then he gets like the stones to like move around and like say stuff with their mouths and stuff like that. And then he gets like slowly becomes famous over a year. He's like the Chapel Roan of his time. And he's in London, and now he's using his magic with like the rainboats, to create illusions against the French forces. during the war. So that's kind of what's going on there. And with Lady Pole, which we will get to, do not worry, that whole mess. But yeah, that's kind of what's going on. So, first thing I'm really noticing, and I mentioned this earlier, is just the amount of inspiration from Austen is like very much present. I would say like the episodic nature of the chapters. So it's like, it doesn't feel like each chapter is like, in a lot of books, it's very linear. Like, even in character focused books, it can feel more linear. This feels more like, okay, it's serialized. Here's a chapter here, a chapter there. Like, it's very much like, oh, I'm reading a newspaper throughout this time period. And I thought that was really interesting. We also less Jane Austen y, but like we also have the periodic sentence structure where it's like the really long, grammatically correct sentences that are very of its time. We have the large cast of characters of people going in and out. But again, this book is pretty big, so there's an argument that this point wouldn't really apply, but I just figured I'd bring it up because that's what I felt when I was reading Austen. Really just the focusing on like the social norms and social politics. I'll get into that in a second. But that I felt was like probably the most prominent of them all. I also thought the characters were super well written. Obviously, this chapter focuses on Mr. Norrell and how I think Clarke justifies him as a character because he's very shrewd, very pretentious, but like I think he kind of has reasons to be like, she starts the book off with him showing off his library and how much he cares about this magic and everything like that. So I think it's fair to say why he'd be so judgmental. Also, he's like really old. Like the gray hair kind of closed off. Like it kind of makes sense for this character, even if he can be kind of stupid sometimes with the whole like vinculus thing. Oh my god. But yeah, like he's socially awkward and misunderstands the world, so I understand why we started with him as a reader who might not like understand the social norms of this time. I thought was really interesting. Um and yeah, and he has like some funny moments that's also similar to Jane Austen, like the narrator character. Like when he's looking at the houses in London and he's like, I can't even fit all my books. like girl, whatever. Okay, whatever. But yeah, I actually really like him as a character. I think he's kind of cool, even if he can be kind of closed off. Like, usually I'm not a huge fan of older characters in general because it feels like it's written in a way that I just need to sympathize with that character for no reason. But like here I kind of understand what he means. Like he is a scholar, he's putting his time and effort into the fields. I get grouchy too. I also really wanted to get into some of the writing and some of the choices I liked that Clarke did. Again, I was hearing a lot of comments saying that like, oh, the magic in this world is so like organic to this world and it's like very mythological. And I thought this was really cool and really important because it does actually feel like that. Like with all the footnotes, with like the golden age of the magicians, the stones moving, like the emphasis on Latin, the rain ships. I thought that chapter was probably my favorite. Like the history itself and the detail can be kind of annoying, but it is of its time, and you do understand like where this is coming from and where like why the motivations might be there. I also think the themes of autonomy and like the sociopolitical ladder like is that's all about connections was so important, and I was really scared it wasn't going to be addressed because of the whole Lady Pole thing. I kind of like the clue earlier on in the volume that like she loses her index finger because of the magic and because she is being brought back to life. Just showing the autonomy being done here, I thought was very well done. And I was scared it wasn't going to go any further, but I think it's showing how Sir Walter is just like not a good person. Like he really wanted to resurrect this person just so he can marry them. And like, no, that's not cool. I just really liked all the details. It reminded me a lot of Pygmalion, partially because I got a collection of George Bernard Shaw's plays at the local bookstore. But when I was reading that, I literally just couldn't help but think like, oh my God, they're just playing with this woman's life. And that is kind of what they're doing here. Like they're really just judging her, and then they just like forget about her when she's not relevant to society as much anymore. So I thought that was really important in how the connections of Mr. Norrell wanting to help this higher up minister because he could get a better feel of like the politics and like help better with marketing and help better with like the war and everything like that. I thought that was very well done and very understanding of like, oh my gosh, they're really just using people. And this guy really has no clue about like social clues or anything, but you know, whatever. So I'm going to talk about some of my predictions that I think will happen next. Number one, I think Lady Pole will be a really good indicator of later events, but probably won't show up again. Like I would imagine like she's the woman scorned narrative that we've seen a few times. I think that she's going to be like that, but I wouldn't be surprised if she doesn't show up again. Especially since the next volume is focused more on Jonathan Strange, which I thought he was a really interesting character so far. So I will keep that in mind. And we know that Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell will meet in the future. They will at least be in some contact. Like it's hinted at in the notes. And I mean, the book is called Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell. So I feel like that's going to happen. But when is it going to happen? Is it going to be like this? Is it going to be like that? I want to see like the tension there. I wonder if there's going to be some romantic tension. I know that this is set in, early 19th century, but I wonder what Susanna Clarke will do with that and their dynamic, because there's supposed to be enemies, but I wonder if they're enemies to lovers. I don't know, but I'm very open-minded. And I'm curious to how the magic and the medicine, like that dynamic, will change. So Mr. Norrell says this quote about how magic and medicine are very similar, and like you can't just like completely change the spiritual. Like they are hard sciences to an extent, if this makes sense. And I'm really curious to see how that will grow. I did learn some like knowledge about medicine and like the spiritualness in previous years. Well, previous centuries is more of what I mean. Especially regarding the medieval ages through some of my classes. So I wonder how that will apply. Long story short, there's very much a spiritual angle to that. So I completely understand where Clarke is going with this, but I don't know if she's going to go there. So we will wait and see. And I didn't really talk about Jonathan Strange that much. He's in like 3 chapters, maybe like 2-3 chapters, but I did really like him. He does get the long chapter at the end, which I thought was really cool. I feel like I'm saying cool like way too much, and I'm not being funny. Like I need my clown nose. Okay. I did really like Jonathan Strange. He's really just like me, where it's just like we don't know where the career's going. He's really not in this state of status. I understand that Mr. Norrell is kind of more closed off in the beginning, but I mean, he can afford all these books in his library to the point where like all these people are so amazed. Jonathan Strange literally just started doing magic, and he's like, I'm going to do it. Also, yeah, this book is really funny, and I do really like that. But I'm excited to see how his character is going to grow and how he's going to grow into Forum, because we kind of have implied from other people that, like from other scholars, that he's going to be written about, he's going to be an important person, and he's likely going to be the second magician to really take over England. So I think that's going to be really interesting and something to look forward to. And yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with this book. Admittedly, it is taking way longer than expected. It is currently President's Day. I'm filming at my apartment, and I think my roommate's still here, so I hope I'm not being too loud. The next update might take a little bit longer to get to. I mean, you all will be seeing this basically all in one video. But this book, I thought I was going to get to this. I thought I was going to film this update for volume 1 like 4 days ago. but this book has been taking so much time in terms of getting used to the writing style and everything like that. Like some chapters are a complete slog. And I did have fun with the first chapter with the library, but I wasn't really feeling the writing style until about page 100. And yeah, so honestly, might take longer for an update, especially since the next volume is like 100 pages longer. Again, I've only really gone through like the first 200 pages. I'm really liking it, but it might take a little bit longer since I put off a certain book. Like I was gonna read it a little bit later once I got through this, but I think with longer books, you just need to put a littler one. Granted, this one is 500 pages, admittedly, but yeah, I think I'm just gonna get through this and then get to this, just so I don't outpace myself, because the amount of effort I'm having to put into this book, and it's like only like, oh, you only read 8 pages, but it's like I put in 15 minutes. You know what I mean? It's just like it's not as timely as a lot of the other novels I read. So I think I'm just going to do that going forward, and I will give further updates on kind of my observations, but this is what I have so far. We will check in, my guess is in around 3 weeks. Yeah, that's kind of it. I've just been really busy. What else can I say? So I will update you in a bit. Oh my God, we're back again. I'm really sitting down with the president of Senior Project and making history, to quote my wise poet, Demi Ryan. Um, yeah, let's talk about volume 2. It is currently it is currently like week 10 of winter quarter, but I'm doing this for the fans. I don't care. Like it's great. It's going. It's everything. So, yeah. So just a quick recap on some of the plot things. Again, this is volume 2, Jonathan Strange. Just a quick recap on some of the plot things. We are focusing on Jonathan Strange's perspective and everything like that. Some chapters here and there aren't from his perspective, but generally speaking, it is, I mean, it's named after him for a reason. And it's about his partnership and eventual split from Mr. Norrell, along with his time in Portugal and Brussels and everything like that. So, like, they start with Mr. Norrell being like the super high, like, oh, like super popular. Then Jonathan Strange, he's like very close to given like a title for his work in the military-ish, the redcoats. I don't know. I don't remember. But service in Portugal. And then there's like the decrease in popularity. That's what's happening there. And then we also have the subplots of Stephen and the fairy. They're both mad. I forgot to mention this more in the first part because it's like only in one chapter, where like the fairy has to come into the world because Mr. Norrell summoned them and to bring Lady Pole to life. And Stephen was promised the King of Fairyland, which is like really important to him as someone of darker skin with several descriptions. I'm doing the work and actually acknowledging it, unlike the Wuthering Heights Heathcliff Jacob Elordi situation. So you can thank me here for that ish. I mean, bare minimum, but still. And yeah, kind of with this section, just kind of my thoughts are, I'm very glad that I read it's in order for a reason, but I'm very glad that volume 1 starts with Mr. Norrell because he's such an asshole in this version. He is such an asshole. I am so glad Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell starts with the perspective of Mr. Norrell because he is so bad in this volume. Like he is shutting down schools, being petty to get a library, doesn't want to give Mr. Norrell, Jonathan Strange books because they might get dirty. Like I understand the passion, like believe me, I get it too. Like we get it. But It is still crazy to care that much. I am very proud that Susanna Clarke is letting Dr. Norrell feel more villainous, feel more, I don't know, mwahaha, with his actions. It's just something that, like, I think people take it as, like, oh, you need to go to the most extreme of just, like, oh, this elderly person, they can be annoying, but you have to sympathize with that. I mostly have this complaint of when elder characters are written, they will be seen as like, oh, they're just mean, but you need to sympathize that with them. I've seen that a lot in media, but the primary example I'm thinking of is A Man Called Ove. That's kind of how I interpreted the book, of just like, this man will fight at an Apple store or a Best Buy because he doesn't understand an iPad and he doesn't understand that he's wrong. But he's sad too, so you need sympathy. And I think Susanna Clarke is making a really good job at really testing you with making sure that you have feelings about characters. You're not just automatically liking them. And I think that really falls into the themes here of just carelessness, like really not taking the magic seriously, like really trying magic for the sake of just like showing it off. And wanting to fit in with these like admirals and generals in Jonathan Strange's case. We've seen with like the reference to the stuff in Portugal where he would do some of these spells which he knows hasn't really been cast since the 1200s. It is really important, unfortunately. So these whole spells from Portugal and these other places, like with Lady Pole, and all the critiques Mr. Norrell has to give about like the school, the this, that, like you can't be doing magic this way, it's all very emblematic of just how like they do not consider the consequences of their actions. And I am so glad Susanna Clarke does not let that go. In my previous edition of this saga, I really thought Lady Pole would be the woman scorned narrative of just like, oh, her life sucks and like all this stuff and it's really sad and we're just going to leave it in the background and not really think about it. No, she like is still in the story and she's still really gloomy and she like needs to find refuge by leaving Sir Walter Pole to find like a sense of community and find a sense of like understanding with her. And I really respected that choice and I was not expecting it. I just thought that was really brilliant because again, we get all these narratives of like, oh, women scorned, they're scorned, but they're leaving the story. They are pushed to the wayside. They're gone. I mean, I guess I'm in my view, I'm swiping right, but it's like swiping left on Tinder. You know what I mean? Like you're gone. Like bye. But I just think it's interesting that she's really letting these things stay and making you feel the consequences of these actions and how they might be building up to a conclusion and everything like that. Pun not intended. Very strange coming from Mr. Norrell, who's like, yeah, you can't open the school. I don't care. Like, you're not doing anything else, babe. Like, you're a little cretin. You're stuck in your home. It's okay. Like, Mr. Norrell, you cannot just stop a school because you think it's irresponsible when you're doing similar stuff. Like, let's be so for real. And when you have stuff to say about Mr. Lascelles, ooh, that was interesting. That was really interesting. And I really liked seeing Jonathan Strange's and Mr. Norrell's falling out just because, like, they have this dynamic of Jonathan Strange is a little bit more careless. Again, the Portugal. And Mr. Norrell is very protective and just wanting to understand, like, okay, this is the right way. This is the way you want to, like, get someone through this. I know I've done that as a tutor for different people of just like, okay, this is the right way to go through this, this, and this. But it doesn't work for everyone that way. And you need to let people have your own journeys or else you're going to have conflicts like the one that Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell had about John Uskglass and, like, giving him the credit and everything there towards the end of this volume. Again, the action, the spells, do not think I forgot that. I thought it was so cool that Jonathan Strange literally moved Brussels to just America. Like, that was pretty cool. I'll give him that. You kind of ate with that. That was really cool. I was not expecting that because usually like it's all about illusion. Like Jonathan Strange, like he swapped the book with the mirror image, and like you couldn't open the book because it's the illusion. Like the actual book's in the mirror, and stuff like that. So I was like, oh crap, are they going to be able to move from this situation? Are they gonna, are they gonna be isolated? And I just thought that was really interesting. I thought that was very interesting of a perspective. I really didn't think she was going to go that far with it, but I guess we'll have to wait and see. Also, the ending. Again, my points with Lady Pole. The points of carelessness, the points of just accepting social rules. I think this is really important because you get the feeling that when you meet Jonathan Strange, he just needs to find a wife. Not that he particularly loves her or anything, but like they want to keep up the social norms, the sensibilities of like, yeah, we're in a living marriage. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I am Lord. You really just want to get the perception that he just knows he needs to find a wife, which Mr. Norrell seems like really weird about. Okay. Gay. And you just get the feeling that like he kind of doesn't care about her as much. Like she was in England for 3 years, Bae. Like she was in England for 3 years. I don't blame her for having an affair, if I'm being quite honest. And the fact that like everyone just kind of picked up on like, yeah, he's not that close with his wife when like his wife disappeared in 3 feet of snow. He was just like, okay, like whatever. Poor her. I was not expecting her to pass away. I really wasn't. I was expecting like one of the minor characters like Childermass and everything like that, but I wasn't expecting anyone else. So that was like points to you for originality and creativity. I will give you that. So again, just these feelings of carelessness by these people, these aristocrats, these leaders in society, just trying to follow social norms. Okay, now we'll move on to predictions. John Uskglass, I mean, he's basically been confirmed as like he is in the world now, especially with like the footnotes referencing him by name. But I know he's going to meet the titular characters, but I really want it to be like a big moment, like, oh, like it's really like a showdown or something like that. I didn't think this book would have a showdown just because like the illusions and like the spells seem very low key, like very minor. But with the whole city moving during the raid, like, I mean, there was some amping up to that. We did get the theories about like the roads being made to get to certain locations by Jonathan Strange, and which is how we helped win the Napoleonic Wars. And he, I mean, helped bring a whole ship out of the water. So there can be bigger things. I wasn't expecting it, but now I'm leaning towards maybe there is like a huge battle ending. Maybe that will happen, but I don't know. But I do hope that's with just John Uskglass, especially since the next volume's about him and these 2 other main characters. And I really hope they get to meet again. I really do. I really do. I also really think that Mr. Norrell is going to find a woman, but I wouldn't be surprised if he doesn't, because he does seem like a shut-in. But I would not be surprised based on how the story's going. And I mean, it's kind of typical for the time. I mean, like, yeah, I mean, like, it's so much about like coupling culture. I mean, it's not the 1950s or anything, but like having a wife is considered probably better for society then. I was also super wrong about Vinculus, the magician who's like, I'm speaking the River of the Thames. And he just like fully doesn't really show up again. I mean, his spirit does. That Dutch guy Napoleon hired was like really funny that he just like hid in a wardrobe. That's one thing. This book is really funny. This part was, I think, funnier than the last one. But yeah. So I would say overall, I preferred volume 1 just because I got the feel for the characters and everything like that. I just prefer reading more about the characters than having a lot of plot. But that's just my preference. And I'm really excited to see how the book will go. I'm really excited to see how it turns out because I've invested so much time into this. I really have, like, I've just been reading extensively over the weekends. The sun is so nice out, so I'm just like taking picnics, just like getting my Kindle out, reading it that way, and reading through the book, just trying to meet whatever I can do. And I'm just really excited to see where the book will go. And I'm hoping I will have the whole book finished by the end of March. I do understand it's finals week. My finals is pretty easy, all things considered. It's just some writing. It's just literally just like locking in and writing like a few pages. And like that's not the hardest thing ever. And during spring break, I'm going to Arizona, but like if I'm a shut-in and I just read, if I'm Mr. Norrell and I just read during that, I will not complain. I will not complain. God forbid somebody messes with literature too much and doesn't want to hang out with people because of it and all that stuff. But hopefully we will see each other soon. Hopefully I will edit this in a timely manner because I know this is going to be hell in a way. Like John Uskglass's Realm. I brought it back. Okay. I will meet you again in hopefully a few weeks, potentially a month. I mean, it did take me like 3 weeks to read this far. So maybe I'll be filming from Arizona. I don't know. Bye. Woo! It is hot in here. Like that Nelly song, whatever. Guys, I have to close the windows when I film because my street is so loud, and I have to turn the fans off. So if I'm sweating, that's how you know. But yeah, welcome back. It's literally Thursday of finals week. I finished my winter stuff yesterday morning, and I finished the whole thing. Look, there's no bookmark in it now or anything. I finished the whole thing. I read the last volume and I have some opinions, so let's get into it. I'm trying to do like nail snaps as if like I have nails to show off. Whatever. You get the idea. Starting with the plot, we have lots of action and gunshots. I was kind of surprised at how many editor me insert gunshots. I was surprised by how much action was happening this late in the story, since like even Jonathan Strange is like, guys, there's like, it's mostly illusions, less so, you know, world changing stuff, which was like kind of what I was talking about in the last section. But and Jonathan Strange moves to Italy, so does a lot of British people, because they're trying to avoid taxes, which, bae, I get it. I do. As a socialist, like, I do want the taxes to be higher, but bae, I do understand. I didn't love this section. It just felt like kind of shock and gore a little bit to me, with just dealing with the madness and everything like that. I did like the aspect of Mr. Segundus doing the whole like magic school, and then Mr. Norrell's like, I'm petty, I will stop this somehow. And it was like, okay, whatever. But I didn't love that part, but I did really like the ending. I again, like, the misconceptions about madness, very par for the course of the time as like something to consume, like, oh, he's like eating the rat, which is like, okay. But honestly, like, that section was, it was whatever. It was honestly whatever. I liked the Fey world and him exploring that, like the dancing and like the expression of like, oh, in 400 years this is going to happen. Like, I know I have my expressions where it's like, oh, in 27 million years. Like, I say that a lot, so like I understand. As a linguistics minor, cheers to that. I really liked the changing England, the changing roads sprouting about in England with all the roads that Jonathan Strange put on, and how that foreshadows the beginning of the book with Miss Norrell doing the first magic trick of like letting the stone speak, which honestly like makes sense considering that like the magicians might be speaking through it, or like different languages, so like it might make sense for it to be Latin after these magicians have disappeared. I don't know, might analyze that more in the future, but we'll get to that. But I thought the Fey world was super interesting. I didn't really talk about the gentlemen and the fairies because I thought that part of the plot was a little boring and just a little too like conspiratorial. But I did like the way that it ended. I did like the way that the gentleman is just so like, I'm so gore focused and like, I know this, this, and this, and I'm willing to make deals. And it was like, I understand why John Uskglass ruled both hell and Fae. Like, I really thought that was interesting. I thought that was very interesting. I also didn't foresee Stephen being John Uskglass. I thought it was going to be the gentleman was actually John Uskglass, but I'm glad that Stephen was. That was pretty smart. That was pretty smart. And like I knew that they were making references to John Uskglass, like the influence being felt in more ways than just like spiritual. So it was nice to see, and it was nice to see that represented. Also, Lady Pole, we got two of her, which like, yes, love her so much, love her indefinitely. And I liked the solution to her plot, and I liked that she was still in the story and she was still willing to critique Jonathan Strange and Mr. Norrell and how, like, you know, detractors work and everything like that. Like, I'm glad that she didn't change her mind immediately after. Even though Arabella did, and that's totally fine. I'm just glad to see, like, oh, she's kind of like, yeah, I don't need to support a man, which cue man child. I cannot play it, but like imagine it in your head. That's how you know. But I really liked the ending. A lot of thoughts there. I really liked the ending and how like it all developed. I really thought it was going to be rushed because I was reading this like and I could see like, oh, the margin between like the ending is getting smaller, 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 smaller. And I'm like, I don't really feel like where's the grandiose? I was expecting a big battle. But when I saw Stephen like arise to the king and he rejected it, I thought that was really important. I really liked that he actually took the time to consider the rejection of like this ontological whatever category of like the Britishness of magic. I really like that it's kind of an inherent critique of that because magic inherently doesn't need to belong to a certain nation. It's everywhere. It doesn't really need to have these roots, which I think is really interesting. I did like that the inclusivity of it and the ability to not be able to fit into a certain category of like the Britishness of magic or just like anything like that was very, very nice to see. It very much fits the modernity of the novel and what it wants to progress towards so that more people can access it. And I like even how in the next book, well, short story collection ish, The Ladies of Grace Adieu. I got this literally yesterday. It focuses more on like the women's stories and everything, which I think is really important because we're focusing on a lot of like male magicians throughout time. Also, Vinculus actually mattered. I went back on my point of like, oh, he's not going to matter, whatever. He's barely in the second part. And then he's like the whole book. He's like all the king's letters. And I was like, oh, okay. Like, I see. Your dad ate the letters and now they're printed on your back and arms. Awesome. I mean, I was still doubting that Lady Pole would be represented later in the story, but I was proven wrong. I was proven wrong. She was still important. That they even made two of her, not just a hawk pole. It was a hawk poles, like hawk tua. Like it was like it worked on many levels. Is all I'm saying. Overall, I would say that the ending was my favorite part of the book. Again, I was not expecting it to wrap up that nicely. With the second to last chapter being basically the ending and the last chapter being more of like a coda and epilogue, just like where they went, how they did. But I'm really glad to see that they collaborated instead. It fits the spirit of Victorian novels a lot better than just big battles and everything like that. Lascelles and the gentlemen got what they deserved. I was not expecting him to kill Drawlight. That was shocking. Like, you cannot call this book boring. I would probably give this book a 9 out of 10. Docking points for the Venice time and everything like that. Even though this book is like so freaking long and can kind of be boring at times, I usually have the critique of longer books of like, this could have been shortened, this could have been 100 pages shorter. I really don't think that. I think everything contributed to the narrative, even though it is largely character focused. And that is a feat to be proud of, I will say. But yeah, I loved the ending and everything like that. I'm seeing where towards the end, a lot of the inspirations for books like Piranesi, where he is mentioned, a lot of those roots are starting to pop up of just like these worlds and like it's so magical. And I love going through an author's bibliographies so that you can see the progressions of thought, what they're focusing on, what in history might be affecting them. I think that's really interesting, and it's very much like transcript studies in a sense. In a sense, it's like, oh, I wonder where you're thinking in terms of this. This is how I felt about the Robin Hobb series because she publishes a book once a year for 9 years. So like a lot of the ideas of like where the books are going to go overlap really well, and you can see where that comes from. So it's one of my favorite things about authors, and I'm really getting that here with this. So in the future, I am tired as hell right now. I'm not going to lie. So I will come back to you. I'm going to make a standalone close reading video of like one of the passages of this book. I'm probably going to do something from volume one, uh, mostly because it's my favorite volume, partially because I think it gets to the magicness, I don't know, the feelings of it really well, and the power dynamics at play really well. So I think that's going to be interesting. I'm going to treat it as an appendix, but also very standalone. So you can just like watch that. If this video is too long, I know it's probably going to be around like 40 minutes to an hour. So do with that what you will. And I will also be reading the short story collection within the next few months off screen. I do want to just see where the bibliography comes from and just see where all the influences are coming out and about. I'm even seeing it now because after I finished this whole novel, and this didn't come in yet, I started reading The Wood at Midwinter, which is her most recent release. It's technically a short story. It's like annotated and everything, like, you know, pretty cool stuff and everything like that. But I read the afterword, which low-key was more interesting. It's just like, it's fine. It has its Goodreads rating of 3.4 for a reason. And I could tell that it was set in the same universe as Jonathan Strange, partially because she already has a collection of stories in that universe. But like, I was like, oh, the stones and the trees talking to you. I know what this is. I know exactly what this is. And what I also thought was interesting is she loved the Jorge Luis Borges stories, which I do too. And I've only read two. And the two that I've read, she's read and inspired Piranesi, which I thought was crazy. Like, inspired this. The two stories I've read by him that I loved were inspired. Yeah. And also, she loves Kate Bush. She's a huge Kate Bush fan, which, I mean, that felt meant to be. So maybe we're just like best friends. I don't know. Like, maybe I need to find the Fae Road to find her, you know. But yeah, this is kind of the end of this. Again, I'll go into more of in depth on what I really liked in the short story, in the close reading video. And we will go from there. I am sweating. It's super hot. It's 90 degrees. So I'm going to end the video now. Ciao.